Now, I think it's pretty safe to say that the future of the Star Wars franchise seems to be quite expansive, not just with their books, novels, comics, and video games, but also, let's not forget about their new Star Wars TV shows, both in live-action and animated form, as well as the new Star Wars movies, such as the 4th Star Wars trilogy of films, also known as the new Star Wars trilogy, and more. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, the thing about Disney Star Wars, when we all examine the sequel trilogy as a whole, we do know that the sequel trilogy had a lot of problems behind the scenes, especially with The Rise of Skywalker, and The Last Jedi was a movie that really caused a lot of backlash. Rian Johnson, I mean, let's not really, forget the fact that he really did a number on the sequel trilogy. He really kind of wrecked it in the middle film of the entire, new trilogy at the time by Disney. It's always the middle movie that's the most important, that really kind of unveils some of those secrets and some of those reveals, kind of like the Empire Strikes Back structure, and how that kind of connects to the Return of the Jedi film. Now, when we look at everything related to J.J. Abrams, Chris Terrio, George Lucas, initially, they had a lot of plans for Episode 9. In fact, a lot of Colin Trevorrow's work was being used for The Rise of Skywalker, taken directly from Duel of the Fates, the original version of Episode 9, before Trevorrow was fired by Lucasfilm's Kathleen Kennedy. Now, given that Kathleen Kennedy, as of this moment, has little to no creative power, thankfully, during, of course, the production of The Rise of Skywalker, a lot of issues really arise because she is the one who initiated all the reshoots and the rewrites that caused so many scenes to be deleted. However, what's really intriguing all is involved with actor Mark Hamill. Now that both Disney and Lucasfilm are finished with the Skywalker saga, they are both focused on their new Star Wars trilogy of films as well as their new Star Wars universe. Now, it's noted that as of now, both Bob Iger and Bob Chapek are in fact developing multiple plans to reunite the Star Wars fans around the world. It's explained, however, that during and after the premiere of The Rise of Skywalker, many interviews were given to the creators and actors of the franchise. At one point in time, actor Mark Hamill was questioned about the troubles with the production for Episode 9, where Hamill stated that Kathleen Kennedy was not pleased with the end result before the reshoots took place, and that the film was even being treated as a movie with no formulated plan or script. Now, when we look at everything related to the sequel trilogy, Hamill is the one who really voiced his opinions the most. In fact, there are moments where Hamill had to retract a lot of his statements for obvious reasons. It's pretty much, clear as day that Disney reached out to Mark Hamill and pretty much forced him to retract his statements about Rian Johnson and The Last Jedi. We went over this about a week or so ago. Moving on. Now, further, alright, this is where it gets really interesting, is that Hamill best describes the process of filming the movie as making it up as you go, with both Abrams and Terrio very confused and scared as to what the fans would think of the film once it released into theaters. Mark Hamill went on to state that Kathleen Kennedy kept on changing the very ending of the film, and that Disney never had a full-fledged plan with the sequel trilogy. Boom. That's exactly what happened with episodes 7, 8, and 9, is that Disney never really had a plan. And I'm sure that you guys have actually heard about this before, is that they were actually really toying around with the idea of splitting the movie into 2 parts, which really would have broke the trilogy format, and it really wouldn't have worked in the long run, given that 2020 was such a mess with the global pandemic at hand. We wouldn't have had a part 2 until, at minimum, 2021 at the earliest. There was a time where Terrio was trying to convince Kennedy to do a 2-part scenario for The Rise of Skywalker, in which Kathleen Kennedy denied or refused to even do that, because it would ultimately fix The Last Jedi's mess by Rian Johnson. And honestly, I think I really would have accepted a Part 2 format, a 2-part format of The Rise of Skywalker. I would have been fine with it. But other people out there, I believe, would have had issues because it would break that trilogy format. Now, they never had a plan overall with, of course, how Luke was going to be treated in the movies, and that's why the films feel a bit disconnected, according to Mark Hamill. Now, it's noted that Mark Hamill went on to reveal that he had actually shot so many extra scenes as Luke Skywalker for the film that were eventually deleted because Kathleen Kennedy wanted to focus less on the Skywalkers. Hamill states that he was confused at first as to why the film was even called The Rise of Skywalker, and that it did not make much sense to him for Kennedy to title the film like that. Hamill reveals that he actually feared the worst, that the fans would feel misled about the title, thinking it had more to do with Anakin and/or Luke. Exactly. Exactly. A lot of fans really went into this movie thinking that the film had more to do with the actual Skywalkers, right? And I think that's the one problem with this movie is the title. I think that the title really made things a lot worse. Now, some of you guys out there like the title, and that's fine. At first, I was pretty much very excited about the title of the movie before, you began to learn more about the whole Rey Skywalker scenario. Now, when we look at everything related to J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio, they were actually going through multiple different title ideas, and we'll get to this in just a second. And they went through so many different title ideas. In fact, at one point in time, the film was being experimented with as A New Order, which would have made a lot more sense because it's, pretty much the new Jedi Order rising and Rey taking care of that, moving on. Now, Hamill also explains that the film originally had more to do with some of the Colin Trevorrow original plans for his Duel of the Fates film that were actually completely cancelled, and that Hamill felt bad about that because he was on the same page with Trevorrow for the movie, where Mark Hamill continued to state that Disney never really had a clue as to what they were doing with the core character in the sequel trilogy, most importantly, Rey and Luke in the movies, and that he agrees that they were mishandled in the sequel trilogy and could have been improved. Hamill continued to state that The Rise of Skywalker went through so many different title ideas before they chose The Rise of Skywalker, and that the previous titles he feels would have been more attractive to the audience and fans around the world of the Star Wars universe. Mark Hamill was also able to unveil that he and J.J. Abrams even agreed that Disney did not really know how to handle the marketing of the movie, and that this was a direct cause as to why there were fewer TV spots with new footage for the film in comparison to what they did with The Last Jedi by director Rian Johnson. So here's the thing about The Rise of Skywalker, and I think that this is something that's very important that the fans need to know right now, is that this movie was going to be far bigger in comparison to what we got. In fact, there were so many extra scenes that were shot that were deleted because of Kathleen Kennedy. In fact, Bob Chapek, the new Disney CEO, is working very hard at this point in time to release what is actually said to be a 4-hour cut of Episode 9, also known as the Lucas cut / JJ cut of the movie, that's going to gear toward a different perspective of the film. Now, Disney is very much inspired by the Snyder Cut and exactly what they're doing with Justice League that's going to drop on HBO Max next year in 2021. They're very excited about that, to see exactly how the fans are going to react to that and how they can really apply that to Star Wars. Now, here's the thing about Kathleen Kennedy. Once again, I think that this yet again, because Mark Hamill was able to really reveal more about Disney's Star Wars and the sequel trilogy, is that, well, Kathleen Kennedy was very incompetent to the max. She essentially did not care about what the fans wanted. There's no doubt about it that she did not care about what the fans wanted in any way, shape, or form. She deleted a lot of scenes with no questions asked, right? J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio had to really just follow through. A lot of George Lucas's work was put to the side, which was unfortunate. And I think that when we look at the overall picture here of the sequel trilogy, is that it really was a hit-or-miss scenario. You had The Force Awakens, it really opened up the possibilities. The Last Jedi could have been the golden film, in which it wasn't. And The Rise of Skywalker essentially was treated as a movie to undo the effects of what happened in The Last Jedi. It was basically a movie that J.J. Abrams attempted to use as a tool to kind of steer away from the backlash that occurred from The Last Jedi. So, like I've said before in the past, I think that we still are on the road to success with Star Wars, given that George, John, and Dave are now all at the helm of the new universe, and Kathleen Kennedy is not going to be involved with any of that except for the Leslie show. So with that being said, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Night to moon, we hear them moans again.